Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Building Loved Businesses, the show where we talk about what makes companies truly loved by their people, their customers, and their communities. I'm your host, Nathan Schock, and today I get the pleasure of talking to someone who has had the courage to start from scratch, not once, but twice. My guest is Larry Thine. He is the president and franchise owner of Goosehead Insurance in the Quad Cities, a business that he has grown remarkably in the last 4 years after spending a decade building a successful State Farm agency. So, Larry's story is one I know you're going to get a lot out of and connect with. So, Larry, welcome to Building Love Businesses.
Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate you having me on.
So, Larry, let's start with where your business is today. You've built a really thriving Goosehead Insurance agency. It sounds like you've got two team members and a business that's growing fast. Just describe what the business looks like today.
Well, the business really is pretty interesting when you consider the market over the last 3 years. We really were just trying to keep our head above water during those hard times in that hard market, but now it's time for growth mode, right? So we got to exponentially grow over the next 12 months. So two team members currently hired, ready to go. Looking to add one additional one in through quarter one, and then quarter three as well. And then we're going to add a service person just to kind of help back up some of the things that the sales folks kind of get bogged down on. So yeah, we're in growth mode, and it's always fun to grow when you get to a certain point when you can afford to grow. And it's been a long road, but we're ready to roll.
So, how did you get here? What did the last 4 years look like? You mentioned the tough times of the markets over the last 3 years, but how did you grow it to where it is today?
Really, we got fortunate that we were able to make the transition right after COVID. 2021 business was still pretty good. And matter of fact, I would tell you that in the market of homes, it was crazy busy, and that fits right in with what we do. So it worked out really well. So we had some really good growth on that year and a half when we first opened. And then the next, 3 years was pretty tough, and we were scratching and crawling and taking calls on why are my rates so high, and also shopping existing businesses, existing business, and then on top of that, we still had to get new business. So there was a lot of challenges and a lot of long hours, a lot of praying and wondering what the heck am I doing here? Like, why did I do this? Why did I make this move? But at the end of the day, we were able to do what it took me 10 years to do at State Farm in about 4 years here. And that, I would tell you, I wish I could tell you that was because of me, but it's not. It's really because of the opportunity that I have in front of me, where I have so many different carriers to offer clients and give
Mm,
clients choices. And that's what they like. They like choices.
yeah. I'm glad you went there because, like you said, this is not your first go around in the insurance world. Um, you spent a decade as a State Farm agent. So, and said now what you did there in 10 years, you've been able to do here in four. So what did you learn there? What did you take? Obviously, you have the differences between the two agencies and the two models, but what did you take from that other experience that really helped you accelerate growth here?
Well, I tell you, the experience of just knowing the industry has really changed the game. I couldn't imagine doing what I did at State Farm in today's market. I think it would have been a lot harder to do. Back when I was started with State Farm, people actually answered their phone, and they answered emails. The world's changed a lot. Now you got to text them and Facebook message them and Instagram them. So it's a whole different game when it comes to how to attract clients. And I think that having the experience that I was able to gain with State Farm and being
Mhm.
around some amazing agents that have really good business sense helped me and catapulted me into being able to move this company a little bit quicker than normal.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that Goosehead had talked to you when you finally said yes. This wasn't the first time they'd talked to you, right?
No. No.
that you'd been going back and forth and you'd ignored them. And then one day you just found that the timing was right. And what was it that ultimately made you make that jump? And what what did it feel like to walk away from that stability and start from scratch again?
Well, I tell you what, there's more than one reason why I decided to change my path. And I'll tell you, kind of the first one was my son, my youngest son, who's now 6 months away from graduating from college, was looking at what he's going to do with his life, and he thought, he wants to coach baseball, wrestling, golf, whatever he wants to coach. And I told him, I said, man, really the best way to get into that coaching opportunity is own your own business so you have some flexibility.
Mm,
So we started looking at him joining the team and maybe taking over my agency at State Farm. Found out
mm,
that just doesn't work real well with their
mm,
model. Uh,
mm,
it, there's just more control over the franchise part of it than what others have. And then on top of that, we had a derecho here in 2020. As a matter of fact, it was right around the same time as COVID happened, and major damage through Scott County, Clinton County, Jackson County, all the way from Nebraska to Illinois,
yeah.
and it was pretty devastating. And unfortunately, State Farm was trying to protect the clients and protect their adjusters. And unfortunately, we fell on our face a little bit during that portion.
Mhm,
About 2 years prior to that situation, State Farm reorganized and got rid of over 50% of the adjusters.
mm,
So here we have this major catastrophe. We're dealing with the COVID situation, being protective of our clients and protective of our adjusters, and we don't have our own workforce to do it. So we fell on our face there. So that was number two.
yeah.
And number three was really what made me seal the deal. Was I started to kind of contemplate and look at this opportunity and saw that really in this model, it's not about spending the most dollars. It's about being the most effective with the dollars you're going to spend. And just the way we go to market is so much different than what we did at the prior company.
Got it. And you're happy now with Goosehead.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's been a ride. I always tell everybody, all you're doing when you move from company to company is trading problems for another problem. I just happen to like these problems more than I had the other problems, right? I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yeah. Now you're talking about getting your son into the business, but the insurance industry is not where you started, right? Before State Farm, you spent 20 years in the electrical industry, both
That's correct.
in the field and in leadership roles. What was it that caused you? What was the move from there to deciding, you know what? I need to own my own business and in a totally different industry.
Well, it was kind of a unique situation. Again, the economy kind of ruled that. 2010, 2009, the housing market kind of went to crap, and the construction industry was pretty volatile. And
Mm,
so we were having the company that I was working for was in three different businesses. We had a communication, an electrical, construction, and then a service industry. I handled the service industry, started with a couple electricians in the service industry and ended up at about 22 at the end of the 10-year period that I was kind of at the realm of that. And during that process, um, the market just really got tough. And the company that I was working for kind of knew that things were going to need to be changing, mostly on the other two companies. The service was really kind of the the glue that kept the business going because it was a nice source of income that was regular. But
mhm,
what happened at the end of the day was I had an opportunity to either stay in the field and take opportunities elsewhere, or I was going to start my own business, be an electrician. And when I laid it all out on paper, 3% profit margin owning my own construction company, it just didn't make sense to me, especially dealing with, the weather and logistics and manpower and
yeah.
vehicles and all the things. So it was really funny when State Farm reached out to me because I had never thought in a million years I'd be in the insurance business.
Yeah.
And the way they pitched it was, hey, have you ever thought about owning your own business? Well, of course, my wife and I have owned our own businesses and, rental property and different things that we've done in the past.
Hmm?
So I was like, yeah, let's talk about it. Well, then that's where the whole thing came. That's when I got challenged. And
Hmm.
when I get challenged, I kind of get motivated. So
Yeah.
that's how I
Yeah.
ended up in
Yeah.
in that situation. Yeah.
Yeah. And tell us about that challenge, right? Where they said, have you ever thought about it? But it's going to be tough. You might not make it.
Yeah, so it's funny. The interview was very strange. It was the first interview, and he basically just asked me a couple of questions, and then I said, "Well, what's the next step?" And he said, "Larry, I'm going to be honest with you." He said, typically this is a 5-year process, and only 3% of the people ever make it through this portion, which is just the interview piece. Then you have to build a business plan and go submit that in front of the CEOs at State Farm, and only 3% of the 3% make it through that. And I said, well, that sounds like a challenge to me. So, first of all, I didn't have 5 years to make this transition. I literally had just a few months, and I did what they told me to do, and I did it without looking back, without asking a whole lot of questions. And fortunately, within 2.5 months, I had my first interview, and in 3 months, I had an opportunity, and I took it. So that's
Hmm.
kind of how that process happened. So a 5-year process turned into three months. So it was a quick transition.
Yeah. In one of my previous episodes, I talked to Sean Wire from Fargo and the Wire companies, and we talked about setting unreasonable goals, right? And how when you set small goals, you have the illusion that, oh, I can just do things a little bit different than I'm doing right now. But when you set big goals, you got to change. You have to
Mm-hmm.
change dramatically. And in some cases too, we can accomplish far more and far faster than we think just by that focus and intentionality. So where for you, where did the discipline to do that come from?
It's I've been an athlete my whole life. I coached wrestling for 25 years. I was a wrestler myself. I wrestled at college. So I think the mental toughness part of the business and the mental toughness of just being able to sustain a long period of time of kicking the can down the road just a little bit and not seeing a lot of result.
Yeah.
Really, I feel like a little bit of that's DNA, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like I got that from my parents and good breeding stock, I guess. And then the rest of it, I think I really learned that mental toughness in athletics and being around good coaches and my parents being good and just
Yeah.
my wife, my family support, my kids. When we made that transition from electrical to state to the insurance business, I sat down with all of my entire family, close family. I'm talking about my kids and my wife, and I told them, I said, listen, this is going to be a tough go. We're used to living at a income of here, and we're going to go to zero, and it's going to take a lot of sacrifice to get to where we need to be.
Yeah.
And they were all bought in, and that's the beauty of what I guess a
Mm.
support network can do for you when you have buy-in at 100%, like what I had and the support that I had. It
Yeah.
really came down to just me asking myself, there's a bigger reason why I'm doing this. It's not
Mm.
just for the money. It's not just for the career, for the fame, for the glory. It's because I'm trying to do things different for my family that I
Mm.
didn't have the opportunity to do. So that's really I think the key to being able to sustain the blows, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Larry, almost every business owner I talked to was faced at some point with what you just described, right? Is do I give up the safe, comfortable job right now in exchange for a promise of a bigger opportunity in the future, right? And
Mm-hmm.
being, my own captain of my own ship. Were there any times along there where you were second guessing yourself or wondering if you made the right choice? And if so, what pulled you through that?
Yeah, I can tell you there was probably two instances when I had that kind of an epiphany when I started with State Farm. I was
Mhm.
probably about 3 months into my business, and I really didn't understand how I got paid. So I
Yeah.
I literally would open my account up and look, and just either want to wish that I had enough money to make payroll. And if I didn't have enough money to make payroll, then I didn't get paid.
Yeah.
So it took me about 3 months to really understand the compensation plan on how I was getting paid for me to be able to affect how that money rolled in the future. So at that point, I do remember month 3 as a State Farm agent, and I literally crawled under my desk, sucked my thumb, and said, "Why in the heck did I do this? Why did I make this move?"
Yeah.
But then I remembered the reason why I did it was because I want the flexibility. I want to be able to have the time with the family. I want to be able to do the things that my parents didn't get to do with me or with our kids. And I come from a large family of 9 kids. So as you can tell, it was probably a pretty busy life. But at the end of the day, I had the same type of thing that happened with Goosehead. And when I opened Goosehead, I had a partner. And we had made a decision when we first joined that we were going to basically take a salary until the business got to a certain point. Well, the problem was we didn't actually play that salary out long enough to see when the success comes in. So at the end of year 1, we were pretty broke, and we were trying to figure out how are we going to keep moving on with this and maintain this lifestyle. So that's when him and I both started looking at maybe a little bit of a side hustle to help soften the income challenge that we have with the business. But God works in mysterious ways. And while we were in that process, my business partner found an amazing opportunity that wasn't a moonlight job. It ended up being a really nice opportunity. And so he took that, which softened our cash flow issue quite a bit.
Yeah. Larry, I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because I think another thing I talk to with a lot of people when they're considering making the jump is, do I do it by myself or do I do it with a partner? And now you've done it both ways. What would you say you've learned from those different experiences, and what would you do if you were doing it over again?
Well, I loved my time when I first opened with Goosehead with my partner Matt. We had a fantastic, 2-year run. It was a blast. We had more fun than you probably ever would imagine. But there was some stresses that came with that, and that's the salary piece. And we didn't always agree on things. And my role was more of the customer facing sales. His role was more of the accounting, the analytical side of the business. And when I was with State Farm, I did both of those things. And I had to
Yeah.
learn how to be more analytical. I had to learn how to use a spreadsheet. I had to learn how to project, all of those things that I had to learn. Where with the partnership, I really didn't have to worry about that. I really just thought about growing the business, right? I
Yeah.
could really focus on the sales,
Mm-hmm.
which was really nice. But at the end of the day, when Matt did end up leaving, and it put me back in charge, I felt a little bit more empowered
Yeah.
to be able to make decisions on a quicker run. I didn't have to consult somebody to
Yeah.
spend money or to make a decision. So really, if I had to do it all over again, I think I would just do it myself without a business partner.
Yeah.
And not that it was a bad experience by any means.
Sure.
It was an amazing experience. It's just I think
Yeah.
I work better when the buck stops with me,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Good. Yeah. Okay. I want to shift gears here a little bit. Um, I can't imagine there's anyone listening to this podcast who has not seen a State Farm advertisement before, right? So, but you have a very different model of attracting clients and gaining clients at Goosehead. Just walk through that difference between that kind of heavy advertising model through, reaching out more through referral partners and other things like that, and what you've learned in those two different ways of attracting clients.
Yeah, I can tell you that as a State Farm agent, it was all about being in the community, getting out there, being part of Rotary and chambers and all of the things and sponsoring this little league team and doing all the things that a State Farm agent's supposed to do,
Yeah.
but also spending upwards to $80,000 to $100,000 a year in advertising through
Mhm.
whether that's Facebook marketing, TV, radio, billboards, whatever. all that included in that number. And then when I really started to dive into this opportunity, I started realizing that I could really focus and be way more intentional and effective by doing this model where I'm actually only working with referral partners, right? When I
Mhm.
say only, I don't mean only. We're organically growing now where we're getting
Of course.
those calls coming in and referrals from clients. But at the end of the day, when you focus your time on a referral partner
Mm.
and instead of throwing your money at, a TV article, now I'm taking them out to happy hour, or I'm taking
Yeah.
them golfing, or I'm taking them out to dinner. More intentional and way more fun than I ever had when I was with State Farm. So that's really the bulk and the meat, the potatoes of being able to change gears and go to market differently. And then
Mhm.
it's all about just making friends, right? That's really all I do every day is make friends. I want to make friends with referral partners, loan officers, realtors, um,
Mhm.
financial advisors, anybody that I can make friends with, I want to make friends with. Somebody asked me the other day, how do you know when you should sell? And I said, well, if I'm up and I'm walking around, I should be selling because that's just the way you do it when you're in business for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. If you own your own business, you're in sales, or
Yeah,
else you're
you're on.
or else you're not going to last very long.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And how successful has that model been? Has that been part of the reason that you think what took you 10 years here only is now taking you 4 years?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more to it than that. Like I said, I wish I could take all the credit for it, but at the end of the day, the business model is different, and that's helped grow,
Yeah.
which is the referral partner piece of it. But also having choices and always having, there's usually some kind of solution that we can offer for anybody. With my prior carrier, I was only able to get the top 20%. I wanted
Yeah.
the 20% that had the best credit rating, the 20% that had no claims, the 20% that didn't have any accidents or tickets, that lived in a $500,000 house. So I wasn't able to market to everybody. So now I can market to 80% of the people as
Mm.
opposed to 20%. So with that, on top of this, and then I will tell you that as much as I hated it during those 3 years of that hard market, rates did go up, right? When rates go up, that does help premium. So
Sure.
at the end of the day, that's another reason why the number was inflated a little bit more, a little quicker than probably what it should have been.
Yeah. Okay. So, you've talked about starting this business with a partner, having him leave for his dream job, bringing on other account executives, and you're getting ready to hire another. And then you talked about bringing on a customer service person. So, Larry, how have you had to evolve as a leader through this? And how have you done that? How have you changed your approach and your role in the business?
Well, I'll tell you, I think I've learned a lot over the last 15 years. But I think my nature and my natural leadership skill is to be an empowering leader. So
Mm,
instead of trying to keep somebody under my thumb and tell them this is the way I want it done, I did this in the electrical industry too. I give them uh, guardrails, and I say,
yep.
here's where we need to be is inside these guardrails. But I
Hmm.
want you to do it the way you would do it, and ask me questions along the way. But at the end of the day, I want them to have the ownership and the buy-in, and not just do things because I tell them to do it. This is the way I did it, and I do give them that option. I say, hey, when I was started, this is what I did. This is how I did it. Doesn't mean that's going to work for you, but as long as you stay within these guardrails, I'm empowering you to do what you do best, and that's be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Good. And then what excites you about the future of your Goosehead agency?
I think really the part that excites me the most is we are continually getting more carriers.
Mm,
Texas right now, Goosehead, if you're an agent in Texas, you probably have about 150 carriers to work with. Now that sounds overwhelming, but at the end of the day, you're really partnering with 20 to 30 of them. But there's always that one off that you need those extra 100 folks, right? You need those extra 100 carriers to be able to fill that gap. So at the end of the day, you're 100% correct on that. You have to be able to adjust and overcome.
Yeah. Okay. And then what about when you look way out? You talked about bringing your son in. You've talked about how the purpose of providing for your family is really what brought you through some of these tough times. What do you see when you look 10, 15, 20 years out? What do you want to build, and what do you hope people will say about your agency then?
Yeah, so I basically have built a business based on doing the right thing. We don't really focus on sales like generally a sales business would do, or a professional sales business. I mean, yes, that is the goal, but when you focus on doing the right thing over and over for the client, the rest of that stuff falls into place.
Hmm.
And when I look at the opportunity that we have, I never had a vehicle to be able to make a difference in as many people's lives as I've been able to do here. And Goosehead's provided me with that vehicle to be able to do it. But
Hmm.
what makes me the most excited is the fact that I'm going to have a legacy, right? I can either pass this on through inheritance, purchase it, sell it, however I want to do it, split it up. I'm in control of that piece of it, and I would love for my son to get into the business and go down that path, but he has bigger aspirations of coaching and different things like that. So if he does end up in the business, it's a bonus for me. But at the end of the day, it's just about building legacy and being able to provide for my grandkids and my kids, because I used to say kids. Now I've got grandkids, 5 grandkids. So pretty proud of that.
All right. Well, congratulations, Grandpa.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, as we close, let, I want you to just reflect on that legacy a little bit, and the journey, right? You think about, I think you said you're the youngest of 9 children, right?
hmm
Um, and you didn't grow up probably thinking I'm going to be a business owner someday. Um,
No,
and that life was tough, but it, like you said, prepared you, gave you the grit, gave you the resilience, and the good example from your parents. um, what is it you think that upbringing taught you, and what have you brought into business that now you want to teach others and then leave as a part of that legacy?
well, that's a really tough question to put a finger on.
Yeah.
I would tell you that growing up, the youngest of 9 kids and having, 5 sisters and 3 brothers, they took their toll on on my beatings. They would beat me individually, sometimes together. But at the end of the day, it made me tougher, right? It made me resilient.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's probably um, a blessing that I had that most people would probably not feel blessed on, is getting beat up by their siblings. I could tell you stories after story about my sister stabbing me in the back of the head with a butter knife, cutting my leg where I had to have 17 stitches, knocking my teeth out. I mean, I could tell you all kinds of those stories, but um, at the end of the day, it's really about just being able to give the legacy and pass it down,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to show my grandkids, my kids,
Yeah.
what being a business owner is all about and how you do it successfully without ignoring your family, because that's what it seems to me like
Mm-hmm.
most business owners do, is they get in the business and they think they got to work so hard that they forget why they got in the business, and that was to provide
Yeah.
the flexibility of family,
Right.
that
Yeah.
life business balance.
Yeah, and it strikes me in this conversation that that's not going to happen for you because you're focused. That's part of your purpose, right? That's part of the
100%.
why, right? Is to provide for them, so that they have those kinds of opportunities. Hmm.
Yeah, 100%. I remember when I first got into the electrical business and the office role, and I made that commitment. As a matter of fact, it was 2004 when my youngest son was born, and I said I'm never going to miss an appointment, doctor appointment. I'm never
Hmm.
going to miss a ball game. All of those things that I said I was going to make sure that I never missed. I
Yeah.
wanted to hold myself to it, and I was able to do that because I had some flexibility.
Hmm. Well, that's cool. And uh, listeners, I don't want you to miss what Larry just said, because that's such an important thing, right? Is it's so easy if you don't have a clear purpose that's guiding you, you can easily get lost in overwork, right? Because it's easy to get addicted to work. I talk to people all the time who have lost important parts of their lives because they're so focused on work. But work is also the means to some pretty incredible things in our lives, right? So, but coming in with that clear purpose is how you set those personal guardrails, like Larry talked about earlier, that help you make sure that your work is funneled in a good direction. So, Larry, thanks for sharing that perspective with us here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this has been an incredible conversation, Larry. I think your story really shows some amazing grit and resilience of taking that 3% of the 3%, being willing to start from scratch twice, learning these lessons along the way, and providing that legacy for your family. I just want to thank you on behalf of the listeners for sharing your journey with us today.
Thank you, Nathan. I certainly appreciate you having me on and being able to share this. And man, I tell you, there's nothing better than being able to pass on a little bit of knowledge so that others don't make the same mistakes that I made, or don't fall in the same pit holes that I fell in. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for all that you do as well. I appreciate you.
You bet. And if people want to find you, Larry, what's the best way to do that?
They can call me 563-386-7740. They can email me, which is probably the better way, larry.thine, Thein, at goosehead.com. Or you can click on my website at gooseheadguysquadcities.com, and we can certainly get in touch anyways. And you can Facebook message me, Instagram message me, Snapchat me, pretty much any of the ways we communicate. You can get me. I'm not a secret agent. Just so you know, I'm not a secret agent. I am very, very open to that.
He's a grandpa on Snapchat. I love it.
That's right.
All right. Well, we'll include all of those in the show notes too, to make it easy for people to find you. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Building Love Businesses. If you enjoyed this episode today as much as I did, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. If you're listening to this one too, we're on YouTube. So be sure to check us out there if you want to see what we look like. And remember, keep building something that you love in your corner of the world. So until next time, I'm Nathan Schock, and this has been Building Loved Businesses.